From Church Militant Studios, this is the Church Militant Evening News.
Hello and thank you for joining us this Tuesday, January 31st. I'm James Fedewa, along with Hunter Bradford here with Catholic News and Context. A reminder, please watch the first episode of our new show, Forward Boldly, starring Christine Niles. You'll be able to find it on the site later this evening. Don't miss it. But tonight, phony Catholic lawmakers are helping pass a bill to kill babies in this state. Pro-aborts are still breaking the law with nothing but crickets from the White House. And one commercial during the big game will do some evangelizing. Leading us off tonight, a North African nation is doubling down on its anti-sodomy laws ahead of a papal visit. South Sudan's Minister of Information stated on Friday that his nation has zero tolerance for homosexual activity and same-sex marriage, both punishable by law. The minister was frank about the pontiff's upcoming visit, saying if he is coming here and he tells us that marriage of the same sex, homosexuality, is legal, we will say no. This after Pope Francis gave vague comments last week seeming to criticize efforts to keep homosexuality illegal.
The president of the German Bishops' Conference is publicly criticizing the Bishop of Rome. In an interview published on Friday, Bishop Georg Betzing said, "We have fundamentally different ideas about synodality," talking, of course, about his and Francis's understandings of synodality. He goes on to say, "We in Germany are looking for a way of really joint consultation and decision-making without the canon law regulations that affect the authority of the bishop being overridden."
Catholic leaders in Cameroon are linking a recent murder of a reporter to a prelate's death years ago. 51-year-old journalist Martina Zogo's body was found on the side of a road in an advanced state of decomposition. Investigations of Zogo's body reveal that he was tortured, sodomized, and mutilated. Back in 2017, Bishop Jean-Marie Balla was assassinated. His body was discovered floating on a river on June 2nd of that same year after disappearing in late May. Archbishop of Douala, Samuel Kleda, says Balla was murdered the same way Martina Zogo was. All of this is happening while persecution, and bloody persecution at that, is rampant throughout Africa.
A Jesuit university is identifying who it feels is responsible for abuse within the order's institutions. In tonight's in-depth report, Church Militant's Nick Wiley discusses who is being blamed for clerical sex abuse.
The sexual abuse crisis is a gift that's going to keep on giving.
Last week, Fordham University released a report accusing patriarchy, white racist supremacy, and heterosexism for the order's abuse crisis. The 68-page report titled, "Taking Responsibility, Jesuit Educational Institutions Confront the Causes and Legacy of Clerical Sexual Abuse," consists of research projects conducted by 18 teams at 10 Jesuit universities. While the report did place blame on the Jesuits and the order's norms for the mishandling of abuse, woke talking points were given ample due.
Our communities are going to have a hard time untangling some of the inherent misogyny and homophobia in these conversations and in the shame if we're not also understanding the colonial and racial violence.
Investigators from Gonzaga University accused the church of being
distorted by intersecting systems of clericalism, patriarchy, misogyny, heterosexism, settler colonialism, white racist supremacy, supersessionism, and Christian supremacy, to the point that the church has become an instrument of the new imperial disorder.
The Gonzaga group concluded,
"The type of structural and theological reform needed in the church will be possible only when the insights of feminist, decolonial, and other liberationist theologians drive the church's agenda for a renewal."
Homosexual priest Father Brian Massingale claims the church is racist and must confront its complicity in white supremacy, going beyond lament and apology to effective restitution and reparation.
I believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. In case anyone from Church Militant is listening, that's not one of my heresies.
Santa Clara University used its portion of the report to advocate for anti-clericalism, which includes
collaborative approaches to ministry that empower lay people to use their gifts and talents and strategies that foster healthy sexual integration and raise consciousness about harmful forms of masculinity and femininity linked to patriarchal constructions of gender.
The evil that is running amok in the church these days is the homosexual collective and its allies.
If Fordham wished to actually highlight the causes of clerical sex abuse, it would have devoted its report to the power-driven homosexual mafia in the clergy, not woke talking points.
According to multiple studies, more than 80% of clerical sex abuse victims were male, with 80 to 90% being post-pubescent. Joining us now is reporter Nick Wiley. Nick, good to see you. This seems like a joke to faithful Catholics, and to be honest, it's so crazy. It is kind of funny. But if anyone is confused, what's going on here?
Hunter, this is really just more Jesuit nonsense. I mean, this is what their schools do, this is what their teachers do. Let's look at something that Gonzaga included in this report quickly. We must resist the understandable temptation to suggest that the primary way of responding to Catholic sexual abuse ought to be the implementation of safeguards for children. The only way to adequately address the causes and legacies of clerical sex abuse is through deep and sustained structural and theological reform. So, first, they're absolutely correct that safeguards for children aren't going to do much for the problem. Sure. We know that the overwhelming majority of those abused were post-pubescent. But then what they say we need is structural and theological reform. That's basically more of this smash the patriarchy, feminist nonsense that we hear all the time. They just found another way of saying, white men of European descent are the reason for all our problems, the more race-based things. And then they wanted to include, lobbying for homosexuality and women having roles in the church they aren't suited for. It's 68 pages of pure indoctrination. This is what people are getting for their education these days. It's just money down the drain, basically, to just learn about, why we are the problem with the world, why the people most of the people going to these schools, are like more white students and all. And that's what they're getting is to learn that, they are the problem, that they should hate themselves and go against everything the church has always stood for. And the crazier thing is it's a Jesuit institution.
It's difficult to steelman this argument, but let's do it for just a second. I'll ask you, why will this supposed structural and theological reform not work to end clerical sex abuse, Nick?
Yeah, because we know that first, it's a homosexuality problem. They blame it on everything else except that. And as long as we're letting these either weak men who won't say anything about it or men who are homosexuals themselves into the priesthood, then, it's going to keep happening. And we don't see, and then the other thing is like, oh, if women are in there too, it's just not. None of that is ever actually addressing the root of the problem. You're addressing little symptoms that you identify that may or may not be right, but you have to address roots of problems to actually make them go away.
I'm more curious in the theological reform. Like, what about the church's theology has aided and abetted in any way with the clerical sex abuse problem? Because it's not a theology problem. Clearly, it's you could say a problem with the people, the men in the church, but that's kind of what we've been saying for over a decade. Also, it's no surprise, Nick, that the same order known for pushing heterodoxy also pushes feminism. Nick Wiley, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Hunter. God bless.
You too.
All right, thank you, guys. Minnesota lawmakers passed one of the most radical abortion bills in the nation with the help of course, counterfeit Catholics. The state's Senate passed the Protect Reproductive Options Act on Saturday, 34 to 33, after it passed the House 2 weeks ago during much protest. 10 Catholics in Minnesota's House and 3 in the state Senate, all Democrats, voted in favor of the bill. The extreme legislation allows killing unborn babies up until birth for any reason using any method with no age restrictions. Democratic Governor Tim Walz has vowed to sign it into law.
7 months following the overturning of Roe, and pro-abort protesters are still targeting Supreme Court justices. On Sunday, a group of abortion activists was seen marching outside the home of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, a devout Catholic. They seem friendly. Protesters have been visible outside of justices' homes periodically since May. Meanwhile, a Catholic civil rights group is asking a key House GOP committee to investigate radical pro-abort group Jane's Revenge, tied to vandalism incidents around the country.
That's right. The Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights is seeking justice via the House Judiciary Committee. Catholic League President Bill Donahue sent a letter yesterday to Committee Chairman Jim Jordan requesting an investigation of those responsible for attacks on churches, pro-life activists, and crisis pregnancy centers with a focus on Jane's Revenge. According to the letter, Donahue wants to know why the Department of Justice and FBI have dragged their feet when it comes to pursuing and prosecuting violent offenders.
When Americans religiously tune in to watch the Super Bowl, as they do every February, they might see something they don't expect. A group of anonymous mega donors are funding a Christian ad campaign called He Gets Us, which will run during the upcoming big game. You may have seen ads like this already on TV recently. The ads are meant to show or remind viewers that Jesus is patient, loving, and surpasses all understanding. In an interview last year, the founder of Christian corporation Hobby Lobby revealed that his family is taking part in funding the campaign.
I think you'll see us, our family, with a lot of other families coming on a program, and you're going to see it. You're going to see it, the Super Bowl. He gets us. So we're wanting to say, we being a lot of different people, that he gets us. He understands all of us. He loves who we hate.
Well, it's a good story. When we come back, a very secular news outlet is having the worst ratings in years. Darn. And a priest has been healed in what may have been a miracle. Stay tuned, all that more up next.
Thank you for watching the first half of Church Militant Evening News.
If you would like to watch the rest of today's episode, please click the link in the description, and we'll see you at churchmilitant.com. God love you.